All right, good morning, everybody. There's still people coming in as we're speaking, so if I seem a little distracted, I'm answering the doorbell, as it were. Uh, Everybody knows me. My name is Les. I will be help monitoring this presentation this morning, just a little bit as far as housekeeping is concerned. If you can please keep your microphones on mute, that would be appreciated. If you wish to ask questions, there's a couple of ways that we can do that this morning. One of the ways is if you want to use chat, that's fine. If you have questions, put a Q colon and then ask the question, put it in chat. I will be able to pop it up on the screen, similar to what we have here, and then the panel can talk about or answer those questions. You can also please raise your hand. If you raise your hand, we'll call on you. You can unmute your mic and then obviously ask it verbally as well. So we have no problem with you asking questions verbally with your mic and all that. That's great. It's just that the comments are another option for us. Okay. This presentation is being recorded, so it'll be available for review afterwards. And then certainly the people that weren't able to meet us live can watch it after the fact as well. So what I would like to do is introduce our panelists for this morning. We have Sarah, our program manager. We have Tina, our grants supervisor, and Danica, who is an education director with the Wisconsin Technical College System. So I'll give them each an opportunity to say hi and introduce themselves a little bit more. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hey everybody, it's good to see you again. Kind of nice we aren't waiting till February for our next get together on program changes. Tina has been really supportive, and so has Danica, in evaluating our processes and making sure that we're trying to make things as easy as we can for you. So open to change, and hopefully what we have planned out is going to be as helpful as we've anticipated.
Sorry. So I'm Tina Bondurant. I'm the grant specialist or grants supervisor with the Bureau of Transportation Safety. Some of you met me at Spring Kickoff. Other than that, I have been with BOTS since 2012 and just trying to help Les and Sarah make the motorcycle program the best it can be.
All right, I'm Danica Woods, and I'm an ed director at the system office. So I supervise all the transportation and graphics programs, and I'm happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to talking to you all.
Great. All right, let's move on then. Tina, go ahead.
So historically, we've asked you to give us round one and round two grants, and really we made the decision that at some point in time we needed to make a change and make it fall within the state fiscal year. And so we pulled the Band-Aid off, and this is what we're doing, and or asking you to help us do. And so for the federal or for the state fiscal year 2025 grant process, we are changing to one grant versus two to cover the whole period, of course, July 1 through June 30th. We are also making it more possible for, instead of asking for maybe one or two reimbursements through the time frame, we can set it up to help you have at max quarterly reimbursements, or stay where we have been historically at the end of each session, time frame. Really, the benefits are that you'll only have to do one set of grant applications, and as we move forward, we even made it so that instead of having to do a separate grant for the BRC1 and the BRC2, that's all been combined already. So now it will truly just be one grant. And the other benefit to this is that it then syncs up to your fiscal planning. And I know it feels weird and sudden, but like I said, there was no great time. So we made the decision that We thought this would be the best time to do it, and we are here to help you through that process as best we can.
So we have some slide deck that we're going to share with you, just sort of to give an overview of some information, and I'll turn it over to Sarah for that.
Sorry about that, just trying to adjust my view so I can keep up on everything. So we'll just do a quick overview and walkthrough of what the grant system looks like, where the notes feature is how to review your status history, and then some items for activity reports and reimbursement. So Tina covered what we're looking for the grant period to be to the shift that we have. There's links to community maps within the grant shell that will take you to nearly real-time data on crashes across the state. You can choose different flag options, different types of crashes, and see where the hotspots are in your areas. There's also historical data available. Les and I are happy to help you learn how to use that more, but feel free to explore community maps as you would like to. And one of the things that I noticed quite a bit this year when reviewing grant applications is we were missing some justifications for items, especially larger purchases such as helmets or other large tools. So if everybody can be mindful of including those justifications either in supporting documents or within the text boxes as directed on the forms, that helps us keep things moving pretty quickly. And a huge shout out to Mark England. He provided us with a great helmet justification letter, how they track their helmets, and then a picture of their unloader destroying the out of service helmet. So it was a neat process, and I'm happy to share that framework for anybody who needs a little help getting through that. So another piece that I was hoping we could see some improvements on is how the supporting documentation is collected for that reimbursement report. One of the things that I see happening a lot is a lot of transparency in terms of individual line items for fringe accruals and other items. What ends up happening though is I end up with 100, 150 pages to review as I go through the reimbursement claims. So if those reports can be simplified a bit in a way that makes sense for your agency or school, is combine those and have wage and fringe separated out by person. So that will help us look at the total number of hours claimed. And then if you have invoices that have been marked paid by your vendor, credit card receipts and other items aren't necessarily needed to support that purchase. And then again, the staff wage and fringe can be provided in that summary. Tina, do you want to talk a little bit more about the single audit requirements since that's your
So, sure. So even though the funds that you are receiving for these grants are state funds, all of, I guarantee most of your tech schools also fall within the need to do a single audit because you receive more than $750,000 in federal funds. And so you're required to have what they call a UEI number, which replaced the DUNS number. And because we want all of our grants and all of our information in WISE grants to reflect the same way, we are asking that you provide that on your org page for the grant, for your all the grants, and from there it transfers over to all the other any grant that you're given. Like I said, I guarantee you have an UEI number. You just need to ask probably your finance people within each of your tech schools and just upload it onto the org page. You really literally have to upload it once and hit save, and you can forget about it from there.
So as staff changes are happening, making sure that your organization info is up to date. is great. If you need to add or delete people, there's some options you have within your org profile. If you need any help, the general email box for us, WMSP at DOT, is a great place to get a message if you're needing support. That way, either Les or I can tackle it as they come in. And Tina, the queen of grant statuses.
So all of our grant systems follow, or all our grants in the system follow the exact same approval process. And one of the questions we always get is, when is my grant approved and why is there an active status? So your grant is the grant activity is actually approved once all of our BOTS staff that need to review it have reviewed it. And you should be receiving an automated email right after the director review status, which will say something along the lines of, congratulations, your grant has been approved. At that point in time, that means we have reviewed all your activity that you listed in the grant and you have been approved at that point. The difference between approved and active comes into play because after everybody's reviewed it, we go through our accounting process, which establishes a PO and all the other items. And so it's sort of like setting up the checkbook after we've reviewed all the activity. And at that point in time, once your grant goes active, is when we can actually start accepting reimbursement requests, because that means your grant has been approved. We've done all of our stuff on our end to make it happen, and you can now start asking for reimbursement, and based off of what you have listed as in your grant. So that's the difference between approved and active. Two different statuses within the grant, but both important, but both at a different time.
So activity reports should be able to be initiated by each grantee as they're needed. Again, if anything pops up with there being any glitches, Les and I or Tina can help you out with that. And supporting documents is another place where we've seen a bunch of improvements, and we're hoping to see a few more along the way for the grant applications and for the reimbursement reports. If the document titles correspond with the budget line items in the total budget request table, that's really, really helpful as we're reviewing for completeness, and then in the claims to make sure that we have allocated, each of the costs are allocated appropriately. Sometimes when sites are submitting their reimbursements, they view an expense in one category, I might see it in another, and then I'm going back and forth across categories trying to make sure that everything is matching up correctly. So it helps us all to keep everything going smoothly.
Les, before you change can you go back for a page? Thank you. This happens to be a screenshot of the general supporting documents page. I believe you in the motorcycle realm, this has a little bit more information at the top that might have, and you have drop downs, I think. So it's very similar and works the exact same way, but I believe you guys have drop downs so that you can sort of pick and choose or do other. So just this, it's just this just happens to be a general screenshot, just so you know.
One of the other pieces that gets lost on occasion is the status history options. Those are shown in the screenshot on the right, and navigating through the forms. And then in the screenshot on the left here, there is a new note button that's shown. If there's anything that you would like us to know, you can add a note there. And when checking status history also through the tools menu, if we have requested any changes or have any items to be kept or noted within a specific stage of the grant, we'll add those notes in the status history. So if you get an amendments and process email from our team. The notes for what needs to get changed will be in that status history. And if the note seems a little curt or short, it is not a scolding. It's just trying to keep it as concise as possible in that portion of the grant. But generally, we'll try to email with additional information if that's needed. So if there are modifications needed for an activity report or for a grant, once the grant is active and you are ending up dropping classes or needing to add class or have unanticipated expenses, both the grant application and the activity report can be amended if it's needed. And then once the amendments are made or modifications are made, please make sure to resubmit so that we can see that you are ready to have us review your new information. And that's all we have. Any questions from anybody on WISE grants before we keep moving?
There was just a comment, just in case everybody isn't paying attention to the chat. It's the question was, will there be a summary of the presentation shared? And this presentation will be shared in its entirety. Zoom does make a summary draft type of document that you can download and have available to you. But then, as Sarah had replied, that we will share what resources that we are able to in our shared resources folder so they can be used as reference documents. All right, let's move on over to...
There was one question from Sue about when the new application will be available.
And the easy question to that is as soon as we can. So what we're doing is we're taking the round 2 for 2024 and changing a little bit of the language to make it fiscal 2025. So if you've already submitted your round 2 for 2024, we will either send it back or ask you to unfortunately complete a new one. It will depend on what our software provider can do for us. There's a chance that they won't be able to make changes to it since it's already been submitted, but we will work with everybody that has already submitted their round 2s. But really, we're trying to lessen as much as possible the burden on you. So instead of giving you a whole brand new grant shell, we're going to make modifications to the round 2 so that you can use that.
And Christy has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so normally because the motorcycle runs more calendar year than fiscal year, we don't, our rider coaches don't determine what classes will be offered for like next fiscal year, April, May, June, until usually February or March of next year. And of course, then we have to wait for the tuition amounts and things too before we normally would submit our salaries and how many classes we're going to be offering. So are we just to do estimates for that then, not knowing actually what we'll be offering, and just do as close of an estimate as we can as far as course offerings?
Yep, so we've seen a couple of planning spreadsheets from other sites where they look at their historical enrollment and other associated costs and use that to forecast for their grant year. So feel free to do your best estimate with the information you have. From what I've seen, the student fees don't change by a substantial amount year over year. I mean, it's not, $100 difference per student. So go ahead and use what you have. And if we need to do the modifications, we can do that at some point. And one other tip for while you're working on those applications, your rider coaches, especially your leads or the ones who are your mechanics or on our QA team, They're amazing resources for what your program might need that you don't have right now when thinking ahead for the year. So if you're in an outdoor area and you need fans or coolers or additional tools or things, please make sure you're working with those coaches. They can be added to the grant system as a project coordinator to help submit that information, or a reviewer also. So let us know if there's a way that we can help get them into the system, but please make sure that they are included in this process.
And as a reminder that you are not penalized if you do not use every last cent that you project going forward. So if you tell us that you're going to use $10,000 worth of maintenance, but it only ends up being $4,000, you're not going to be penalized that $6,000, because we can only reimburse you for actual costs expended. So your application is truly your best guess of what it's an educated guess, but it is your best guess of what is going to happen going forward. But then we also know that, on your very first training session, 3 people crash their bikes, and your maintenance costs are going to go through the roof. Or you have a coach retire and mid-season, and all of a sudden your 12 classes that were planned now become 6 because you just don't have enough people to cover those classes. So all of those things are we take into consideration, and really all we have to do is either amend the grant or add a note to the grant, and it is sufficient. As long as we can document and track along the way. That's all our auditors ever ask of us, so that's all we would ever ask of you.
Sarah, we had this question come in, and I know you answered it, but for the recording purposes, how will the change impact reimbursements of January through June 2024?
It'll be business as usual for those. We'll get those activity reports available, and we'll get them reviewed as quickly as we can and turned around.
Yeah, really, this change is more on our end, because we it is just like when we put in your POs and your information based off of those kind of things. So anything that is already in process, do as you normally would do, and we will take care of it and take the steps to make sure that it's coming out of the right funding sources and such.
All right, we'll take more questions, but let's turn it over to Danica to give this overview of some course guidance from her side of the house, or yours, or a lot of people's side of the house, I guess, the technical colleges.
Yeah, so I know we've gone around and around on a few different things on how to, I guess, organize the motorcycle rider ed courses. Statewide, currently, none of these courses are aligned, meaning every college can make their own course titles, their own course numbers, and their own course credits. So what we're thinking of doing, and you will have an opportunity to look at the final draft of this and provide feedback, so don't panic yet. There'll be a period of time I'd like to know your thoughts, absolutely. So, but what we're thinking of doing is aligning some of the motorcycle rider ed courses so that there's consistency across the state. It might answer some of the questions that we have pop up from time to time about how you should be running your courses. This will align the course title, the course number, and then the course credits. The course credits and hours would be based on whatever DOT and MSF recommendations are. So I think typically for the basic rider course 1, that's about 15 hours. For WTCS language, that's divided up between A hours, which are classroom, and B hours, which are lab. So I won't get too much more into the in-depth about how we construct the courses, but they'll still be continuing education. And it probably is going to be a 42 code rather than a 47, but we're just thinking about aligning a few of these courses. So again, for consistency across the state, and you can scroll down just a little bit more. So probably BRC 1 and 2, possibly the 3-wheel. And then I know that MSF has their own list of courses that we could consider aligning. What I don't want to do is cause a lot of restrictions for the colleges that make it difficult for you to just make the courses that you need. So you will still have the ability to make your own courses, but we're open to knowing whether you want to align the additional courses that are in this list, or if it's best to just leave those kind of ad hoc for each college. Again, you are allowed to make any of the courses that you need to for continuing ed. They just have to follow the basic course construction rules for WTCS. And then if there's any guidance put out by MSF on motorcycle courses in general, you just want to follow that guidance. As far as the e-courses go from MSF, I know we've talked a lot about how to handle those within each course. Initially, we thought that the e-module didn't really change the course hours. We were looking at it as just a modality piece, but moving forward, it's likely that that will become just something that you include with the course and that you do not charge to the student because it's reimbursable under the DOT grant. So again, this is something that once this draft guidance is completed, I will put it out for feedback from all of you. I know there's things that you think of that I don't, so open to hearing your feedback on this, but definitely wanted to give you guys a heads up of what might be coming, just aligning a handful of the motorcycle courses and then how to handle that e-course cost reimbursement. Are there any questions about these proposed changes? Any feedback?
I'm sure as
Silence is
people,
golden.
yeah, right. I'm sure as people
I was just
digest it
thinking
and
the same
start thinking
thing.
about things, yeah, they might have more questions. So just as a little bit of a summary, we are switching from a offering or being required to submit 2 grants, which sort of straddled 2 fiscal year periods with the R1 and R2. Those that are already submitting grants here are familiar with that. It's just going to be 1 grant for that whole 12-month period, the state fiscal year. So ultimately, hopefully, reducing the amount of grants and paperwork and things that we have to do for all those that would have been individual grants there. So I think it's a benefit. We do have a question that popped up. Let me get to this screen here. Can you provide clarification on the eCourse cost reimbursement? Are you saying we'll be able to cover this cost in the grant?
100%.
And because of our participation in the QA program and the way MSF manages eCourse codes, it's actually significantly less expensive for each student to be given a link than have to pay out of pocket for that fee. Les, do you remember what the price difference is on those?
This just a guess.
$40
Like if it's
versus $8.
right, it's something very significant where us paying for it reduces the burden on a student to search out this training, right? Because if they're already paying the 200 and some dollars to the technical college or some other private school, now they have to pay that additional e-course fee. It starts to add up for them. So providing that coupon code or however you do it, by you providing it, customer service, starts to go up there, and then it's not another hurdle keep preventing students from getting registered. And then also it keeps them from registering for the wrong e-course, because although we give them information in the email saying do this specific one, right now still 25% of our schools out in Wisconsin still offer the E3x5x10, which is a different e-course than the EP1x11. And although if you take the EP1 e-course, you can still do the E3x5x10 because that's just additional information. What you cannot do is the reverse. You can't take the E3 e-course and then attend an EP1x11 course because the level 2 classroom information is not in there. So that's another benefit to us or the technical college system providing that e-course to them. Yeah, we have some comments. Nicole, this is a lot to think about. Surely is. Kelly, you had mentioned we tried the e-course in the course fees last year. It did not turn out well. Have other sites done with success? And I guess you're speaking from the technical college system, but do we have specific examples or someone can share?
I'll volunteer Nicole. I don't know if she wants to speak up, but I know that there are sites that have done it fairly successfully, but I can't remember what their process flow looks like. Or anybody else that has any tips and tricks they want to share right now, we're open to that.
And I was just going to jump in real quick, Danica from the system office. I'm thinking that in the future, this might be a process thing that we turn into a best practice across the colleges. It may not be something that's official WTCS guidance, but if we're saying that we cannot charge students for the cost of the e-course, then there must be some other way that we can include the cost as a reimbursable fee, but not pass that cost on to the students. So we'll have to give that some thought. And DOT, if you've got thoughts on what shows that it's a required part of the course, maybe there's a way that we can do that so the paperwork is accurate for what you need for the grant reporting purposes, but then again, that student doesn't have to pay for the e-course.
So the Rider Education Recognition Program called REIRP through MSF lays out the requirements that each training site has to adhere to as part of that agreement. And since we're on REIRPs anyway, please make sure MSF has up-to-date information for all of your site coordinators and lead coaches. There's a process to go through to get information updated, and unless it's been approved, individuals cannot request to be added on their own. So check with your coaches and they can help you with that. I know that can be a sticking point, but it is definitely MSF requirement in what your coaches will know as the Retsorg library online for MSF. That's password protected for coaches and admins. Lots of acronyms, sorry about that.
Yeah. Nicole had another question. With the new EP 1x11 for BRC, is that being factored in the state-aligned curriculum format? It is less than 15 to 16 instructor hours.
Yeah, so I think when we figure out how to set the total amount of hours for each course, I think that will answer some of those questions. In my mind, it was going to be based on whatever recommendations were for MSF on how much classroom instruction and lab instruction, and then I'm seeing the e-module as a separate piece, and that allows for flexibility in which module is used. So I'm not sure. We'll have to have more discussion about how that might impact your course hours if you are counting those hours as a part of the course. So I think I will save that one for later, but I think, let's see here, Molly said she's got a good process that Blackhawk worked well. Okay, so maybe either Molly, you can share, or I can connect with you later and we'll figure out some good ways to have this work.
I'm good to share now or later. It's kind of involved, and I know that this was only scheduled until 10:30, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time.
And that's certainly something as a best practice. If we can get it on paper and provide it as a resource, or some other way to share. This question comes up all the time, where that tech school over here doesn't know necessarily the process that's working for the tech school over there. So bringing Danica in here and having this consolidation a little bit, maybe with common practices, I think is a great thing. And information sharing, I think, is a great thing. So I look forward to hopefully having this be that funnel for those best practices and getting everybody on the same page for things that really work and have been working at other schools that somebody else just hadn't thought of or just didn't understand the process. So we are bumped up against time here, and thank you for reminding me that maybe I should be respectful of other people's time and stuff like that. But we hope that this has given a little bit of insight as far as the new process. Obviously, we are all available for phone calls, for team meetings. Sarah and I both in all our emails have a book time with us. If you need some one-on-one time, we can share screens. We can look at different things and get your specific questions answered as well. Any from the panelists, any last minute comments for the group? Sarah, start with you.
Just wanted to say thank you to Danica for joining us and helping us have that consistent information. We're all trying to get to some of those same end goals. And when we can share information at the same time and be on that same page, it makes everybody's work product better and easier. So I'm looking forward to all the improvements we can make together.
Tina?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, everybody, for taking time to do this. Like I said, I know it feels like we're ripping the Band-Aid off. Our side of the house will do everything we can to have the round 2 grant shells or updated early next week so that you can all start working on them. And then depending on when we are able to get them out to you, it would be really, really helpful if we could get them back to submitted status by middle of July, so that we can hopefully get them approved and on the way. And then really no one has to think about another grant until sometime, probably right around spring kickoff again next year. But again, thank you to everybody that took the time to be with us this morning, I guess.
Danica?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm looking forward to connecting with everyone again soon on the alignment of some courses. Thank you.